On this episode of Star Trek Universe, we're talking about Star Trek Discovery 411, Rosetta, after these words from our mystery sponsors. Welcome to Star Trek Universe, the podcast where you get to listen in on the continuing Star Trek conversation two lifelong friends have been having since they were 6 years old. My name is Matthew Carroll. I'm David C. Robertson.
Dave,
What's up, man?
I don't know. It's a good day to talk about Star Trek. That's all I can say.
Is it? Is it good to talk about Star Trek?
Oh, for sure, man. We got to talk about Picard this week, and I had just a blast talking about that. And now two new episodes, fully produced new episodes of Star Trek. I just can't even believe we live in this time. I need more Star Trek fans in my life, is the truth. So
you don't have to talk to me about it?
No.
No, I get it.
Happy to talk to you about it.
Sometimes, after a certain amount of years, a marriage gets stale. You've been talking to me for like 32 years about Star Trek.
It's true. My thing is there's not that many Star Trek people in my life. I feel like, remember when the 2009 Star Trek came out and we had a party for it?
Mm-hmm.
That was so much fun. I loved it because it was like we had a party and like 15 of my friends showed up. Our friends showed up, and it was just a bunch of Star Trek friends. And I was like,
"No, they were your friends. They were your friends.
You were there.
My sister was there.
Yeah, she's your friend."
Here's the thing, though. I've looked for other Star Trek fans. There's nothing out there. It's not worth it.
There clearly is something out there, and I don't know.
Yeah, there is.
I just miss. I miss that. I miss the fact that Star Trek, two big episodes this week. One is this is the penultimate episode of Discovery, right? We only got one more.
No, next week we've got two more.
Okay, good. I believe good because I was hoping this wouldn't be the last one. So we're very close to the end of this season of Discovery. It's ramping up. We're getting actual evidence of what the 10C is like. I'm excited about that.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the same time, starting Star Trek Picard, it just is a good week, man. It's really cool.
Yeah.
And almost no one in my life is talking about it. I'm like, what are you doing? Why? I don't know.
The Batman came out, Picard came out.
I know, right? And yeah. It's a busy week. It's a busy time for geek content. I feel like most Star Trek fans are a little older, I guess, maybe, and it's just a little more bifurcated and less of this going on these days.
Right. I find in my circles that Discovery is not really a Star Trek you discuss because it's so divisive among the fandom that if you bring it up, you never know of a Star, you can see a guy in a Star Trek t-shirt or something, but if you're like, oh man, Discovery, they might just go off on you about how it's woke or about how they hate it or whatever. Sure. And Picard is a little more...
Well, it's a little more exciting, I think, for Star Trek fans.
Yeah, it's also more inclusive. Like the old guard are watching this one as well.
Yeah, that is true. That is fair. It's a good point. And I guess that's why I just am really excited about Star Trek this week.
Mm-hmm.
But let's talk about this episode. This is the episode Rosetta. It's about a crew is approaching 10C, but they've decided to stop on a planet that seemed to have some artifacts that may lend itself to teaching them about the 10C. They find a desolate planet that doesn't seem to have any life on it, but they also say that they can't even identify their own life signs. So it's just a strange planet that they don't know anything about, and they discover a substance on the planet that seems to be related to the 10C that basically causes emotions in those who encounter it. First fear, and then later they find a substance that produces love. And at the end of the episode, we find out they have the compound is they found 16 different compounds. So it seems like almost like this 10C may have some sort of communicate through emotions or communicate through chemically, animals that communicate chemically. And so it seems like the 10C might be one of those, which is definitely interesting. Yeah,
a bunch of cartilage worms floating around blowing smoke on each other's face.
Yeah. Yeah. That is definitely going to be a hard case to crack in the communications arena.
Unless of course, we actually find them, and it's been so long, they've evolved into brains in jars. Fingers crossed.
We can only hope. Yeah. Well, they said it's only been 1,000 years. It's been a little longer than it's been about as long as from when they jumped from.
Yeah.
So it probably not too much crazier or different than they are now. But apparently these big cartilage worms had the ability for space travel, unless the cartilage worms are their animals. That was another thing I thought. Like,
yeah, man, I thought about that too.
Like, you think there might be these big cartilage worms or or giant birds or something. But then, yeah, it could just be that those, like they say, they gathered here. It's a mass grave. They must have gathered here. But that could also be like, when a lot of times when there's a natural disaster, animals will migrate or like have weird patterns and stuff. So it's possible that all the animals just piled together for the end of the world, or like this particular mass grave worth at least.
Yeah, it was especially hilarious to me that like no one brought up, maybe these aren't the 10C. Maybe these are some other being that was living on the planet with them.
Yeah, exactly. It's very strange.
Maybe this is like their version of a cow.
Exactly. Or an elephant or like whatever. Yeah. Like, yeah, exactly. I was thinking the same exact thing. I was like, that's weird. The other thing that weirded me out, I did not like about this episode. I complained last week. I was like, they're going to go to that fucking planet, aren't they? They're going to go to that planet. Man, I want them to get to the 10C, and they're going to go to this planet.
It's like my grandmother always told me, before you fight the guy, break into his old apartment.
What the hell? Dave, your grandmother was strange, but I love her old sayings. You must know a man to fight him. And the best way to do that is to break into his old apartment.
She didn't actually say that. I made that up, but because I thought it was funny.
I know it was very funny. Yeah. I was just embracing. I didn't want you to reveal that it wasn't true. I just wanted you to start telling us the story of your crazy grandmother.
No, I don't want to lie about my grandmother. Not for real.
Well, I complained last week that they would go to this planet, and I was like, I just want them to get there. But honestly, I actually really like what they did here. I like the idea of these chemical cartilage worms. I think that's neat. I like how foreign this is to our way of communicating. I like that it's something we have a reference for in animals that communicate chemically. I loved the end where Stamets was thanking her for the hope she had given him.
Yeah.
I liked how it was divisive, and that the general from Earth was like, no, like, what are you doing? We gotta keep moving. Like, the general spoke for me, and almost that was enough. You know what I mean? Like, at least someone said it.
I feel like that general is basically just used as that in every episode she's in. It's just like, I disagree.
Well, she's the protectionist, violent one. She's like the kind of warfaring, like, we just got to do this thing. We got to do. And like, man, you see the president working with, the doctor to try to get him to be, to kind of calm things down. And because that's important to keep things on course here. Then you've got Book, like, crawling through the ship, going to the most like warfaring, violent person in the whole of the ship, and like telling him, hey, I can help you be more aggressive. And it's like, come on, Book, you're really working at cross purposes here. And then in the end, he gets to hear that conversation between Stamets and Burnham, and he doesn't change course.
Yeah, no, he just touches the wall. It was good to hear her.
Yeah. Just like, what was the thing earlier in this season? They told Book earlier in the season the thing about the DMA, and how I forget what they told him that made him not want to attack the DMA. Do you remember?
Oh God, what was it? I did know.
They figured out how much time it was going to take. That's what it was.
Oh, it was a week. Yeah,
they figured out they had a week. That's what it was. They just needed to communicate that to Book to get him to be more reasonable. And I feel like in this situation, like hearing that they just kind of found the Rosetta for how to communicate with these things, like they now have hope. You would think that maybe he would have a little more faith in their plan. But I mean, I guess he's just so dead set on having a backup. But don't fall for freaking Tarka's shit again. Like, he led you down this path before, and then you thought you could control the situation, but you can't. He better have a leash on Tarka, is all I'm saying.
He probably thinks he does.
Yeah.
Of course, he makes it back to his ship and finds that Tarka is taking a freaking prisoner. So
that's
he's
right.
got a hostage.
That's right. Yeah.
It's like, oh God, like you can see it on Book's face too. Like, this is some horse shit, man. Just like. Yeah. Really? We went there with one thing to do, and you brought back freaking Jet Reno.
I liked Reno this episode.
I like Jet Reno in every episode she's in.
Yeah, agreed. I'm with you. I liked her, like, I don't know. It was like day in the life of Jet Reno as an engineer, just complaining about the ship and like, why are the replicators doing that? And why are they this? I don't know. All the problems are small just to get her out of the office, you know? It was just kind of nice. It was a fun little gag. Yeah. Especially for, that actress to play and everything. It was just nice.
She knows the replicator, their version of the replicator malfunctioning was that it was making like steamed bananas, which is totally a reference to Lower Decks.
Oh, that's fun. I didn't remember the steamed bananas thing from Lower Decks.
It was like replicator banana hot or something like that.
That's great. I miss Lower Decks. So what have we got? I was going to say the one thing that I did not like about this episode, the one thing that really bothered me was how gun happy the crew was when they landed. They're landing on a planet they have no reason to think has any life signs. Yeah. They are landing on like basically an archaeological mission. And I mean, I've seen a lot of Star Trek, and they land with their tricorders out, you know? Like that's what they do. They
usually have a couple of guys with guns.
Sometimes depends on the situation. And definitely like not always drawn. I don't know. They landed with their guns drawn.
Yeah.
And then almost when he saw the bones, he was like, what? It must have been a glint of light off of that. And he pointed at the bones, and they all turned their guns on the bones. I was like, what? I just feel like I understand they haven't been explorers really on this show. They've been more like dealing with Federation issues. But like, I don't know. It just seemed like especially a weird aggressive thing to do, especially on this planet they're not totally sure isn't going to like alert the 10C or something.
Here's my headcanon for it. Michael is not an experienced captain. If you'll go back to old episodes of the original series or Next Generation or what have you, they'll go down to the planet. Yeah, there'll be a science officer with a tricorder, but there's always a couple of security people with guns drawn. As soon as they get down there, they pull their guns, and then like Kirk or whoever, Riker, whatever, will like look around and like put up a hand and be like, put the phasers away. And then they'll be like, all right, and they'll put them away.
I hear you, but I don't think that this show is trying to tell me that she's an inexperienced leader. Like I know that's part of the journey of this show for sure. But like, I mean, she learned about shooting first in the first episode. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't think they were trying to teach us anything. That's just my headcanon. That's how I make it work for me.
I just thought it was a little weird. But other than that, I really like this episode.
I'll tell you what I didn't like.
Please. Welcome to Star Trek Gripe Fest. This is our segment of the show called Airing of Grievances.
Airing of Grievances. A Festivus for the rest of us.
That's right.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Is the point of an environmental suit not to block out unknown particles or particulates or whatever you want to call them. Like,
right. Yeah, no, I thought that was weirdly strange. I mean, there's one line in there that makes it work, which is like, if the biology or if the construction or whatever is different enough, it's possible that it'll make it to the EV suit. So it works. They threw in their own canon there, but like, it was a little strange. I was like, it wasn't until a rewatch that I heard that line and made it okay for me. Because on the first watch, I was like, isn't the whole point of an EV show is just like, it blocks everything out? And like, it seems like a physical powder getting through seems like a pretty like bad oversight. But I guess they said like, if it's different enough, then the programmable matter might miss it or something.
Something like that.
Yeah.
They gave a shitty explanation for it. Do you want to get the feedback? Do you want to do that?
Yeah, of course. Who we got?
Stu Little.
Stu!
He says, hey, an episode about coming into contact with something from a dead world that makes one experience stuff the stuff who lived there went through. Why does this feel familiar but kind of lesser? And like it should end with Michael playing a flute. That is quite a stretch, Stu. It is a very, like, I definitely get his corollaries there, but it is a very different episode for sure. And yes, I will say it is lesser than that, but that's one of the best. Yeah. It was more like just it didn't really give them like experiences so much as like acid flashbacks. You know, it wasn't like they lived a whole life. They didn't like come away with like.
I thought you said him, and I thought you said them. I thought you said him, and I was like, yes, it did. But you're right.
Oh yeah, no. They were just like, what stuff is happening, and I don't know what. There's screaming and a thing.
Yeah,
shadows. They weren't like, I had a son. I put my shoes away because my dead wife wanted me to.
But Stu brings up an actually interesting point though about this, because it seems like they're saying there's these 16 different compounds, right? And these 16 different compounds are giving them these like fear and love. It's the two we sort of saw, and then there's 16 different ones. But it seemed like earlier in the episode, I want to say Saru said something like, I think or Burnham said, we're seeing what killed this world or something like that. We're having flashes of what killed this world. And there's that moment where he actually sees some images. I don't think other people really see as much as Saru does, but Saru sees things like reaching over that tower and like looks like it's going to smash that building.
It does, yeah.
So like, at first, exactly what Stu's saying, it's like, are they experiencing their memories, or is, I guess, his fear response is just triggering this hallucination that isn't actually part of the experience of these people? Because if there's only 16 different types of compounds, there's no way that like one of those compounds is Armageddon. You know what I mean? Like, it's like that seems like it's just a fear response. And then his, Kelpian brain is interpreting that as whatever it's interpreting it as.
Yeah. Well, actually, I do have a bit of leaked script here. It says here, one compound makes you larger, one compound makes you small, and the one that Mother gives you doesn't do anything at all. Apparently, they want Burnham to go ask Alice. I don't. She's 10 feet tall. Yeah, just seems like hokum.
It doesn't seem very science fiction to me. I don't
know. Stu continues. I will say it was nice to have Detmer on the mission, even though I wish she had a more important role in resolving problems than just being unaffected and changing some suit settings. I thought that was pretty important. I figured it was going to be connected to her cybernetic implants, shielding her mind in some way and not some filtration system. Speaking of, does it seem like a major oversight to anyone else that a protective suit wouldn't be able to block out an unknown substance like the dust hydrocarbons?
Yeah.
Yeah. We covered that. Yeah.
We agree, Stu. We agree.
Yep. Also good that Hirai got a teeny bit of a subplot, but again, feels a bit counterintuitive to have an expert in communication being told you're kind of being an asshole when you interact with people. I'll tell you this, though. I took a few communication courses in college, and all of those professors and most of the people who were doing really well in the class were assholes.
I thought you were going to say, I took a few communications courses, and you've all heard me speak on the show.
Oh, no. See, that doesn't really track because I didn't do well in those courses. Which should have been an omen, I guess, for me.
I actually think Stu's onto something interesting there, in that the guy who's good at communicating is not good at communicating. It's kind of an interesting character choice. Like, I think Stu's saying it's kind of stupid or like it doesn't really make sense, but it's kind of an interesting character thing. I wish they would almost like I wish they'd hung a lantern on that, because that's an interesting idea. Like, the guy who like works so hard to learn to communicate is not good at like interpersonal skills. Like, that's kind of a fun dichotomy.
I didn't feel like we had really gotten that from him necessarily, like, until now. Like, I was like, have we seen him interact with someone? Like, why are they bringing this up?
Well, last episode he also said something at the table that was a little rough or a little gruff. When they were sitting down to like do the plan to leave on this mission or whatever, I remember he says something sort of like he's definitely like been the sort of like bad bedside manner guy.
Okay.
I believe there was something in the previous. He's just sort of like, he's all facts, no feelings sort of thing, like where he's not taking care of the people around him because he's just like, this is what I'm just going to say a fact, no matter how it affects you. Yeah.
Okay. I hadn't noticed. I'm always so distracted by him eating.
Is he always eating?
He's always eating.
That's funny.
He's constantly eating. We talked about it the last Discovery episode.
Yeah, I remember you mentioning it. Now I gotta pay attention better to the eating. I for some reason I know some actors like to do that. Brad Pitt being one of the examples. I think we talked about that last episode, but like he does it. I've heard him in interviews talk about how he's or like whatever. I've heard some actors talk about how they do it for the purposes of it just sort of gets them in the moment. It's like doing something bodily, doing something that's like you're naturally would do. It gets you out of your head and sort of like lets you just live the scene. And I wonder if this is an actor decision or a director decision for him to do that.
Yeah, I'm curious.
There's of course the famous scene where Robert Downey Jr. hid food all over the set. Did you know about that?
I think I've heard about that. Yeah,
it's the scene in Avengers when. They're having the big kind of like first fight. They're all in the lab together. It's the scene where like Hulk picks up the scepter, I think. Anyway, they're in that lab on the helicarrier and Tony's eating. Apparently, like Joss tried to stop him from eating, but he just kept he had food hidden all over the set. And so every time they hit action, he would still be eating. He's just like, no, I've made the decision. I'm going to eat in the scene. And they tried to stop him. And he just kept finding more food hidden around the set.
Yep. And we see where those guys wound up. RDJ is a megastar and Joss is canceled.
Indeed.
Stu continues. Good to have more Jet Reno, though even she falls victim to the TV movie curse of that cup clearly doesn't have any liquid in it. Sassy hostage Reno should be good for some laughs, though. They're doing a great job of making Book's actions seem relatively reasonable under the circumstances. I hope there's eventually a payoff that shows it's a good thing he's been acting this way, and it's not just resolved with him being wrong. I hope speech saving the day, and he and Michael breaking up because he went against her views on this. Yeah. I hope there is some level of it's going to be a tough road to hoe, man, because like I feel like the fans want them together.
Yeah, I think that's true.
And if he turns out to be right in any way, it completely undermines her captaincy.
Well, and I agree. They've set up a really interesting showdown for the final episode, and I'm excited about it because so often you just kind of see where it's going, you know? And when the crew is all on the same side, you can sort of just see, well, this would be a victory, so it's probably going to end that way.
Yeah.
They may lose something, but they're going to make the right decisions. They're Starfleet.
Yeah, but I mean, this is definitely a Kobayashi Maru. Like, it looks like they're heading towards a real no-win scenario with Book and Michael at the very least. Yeah.
Unless something... something unforeseen happens, and that's the thing is like he said, what's the doctor's name who was the communicating asshole?
Hirai, maybe?
Hirai starts the episode, I think, saying like, whatever you think will happen won't. Whatever who was that? Was that I don't know. Anyway, somebody's saying that like whatever you think is going to happen will not. Whatever you think this is going to be like, it won't be.
Oh, that was Julie Chen on Big Brother. She was like, expect the unexpected.
Oh no, I forget even who was making that speech, but like I think whatever's with the 10C, whatever's going on, is going to require, and I think Jet being on the other ship is going to be part of that. Like, there's going to be something that happens here that's going to require everyone to be where they are. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Because they've written it this way for a reason. And so, like, I think that Jet, I found it interesting when Jet showed up over there because she's the engineer, right? We've got the, it's weird though, because you'd think Tarka could probably do most of the sort of engineering that he would need Jet for, but I feel like there's going to be something that happens that Jet is going to have to step in and either, I don't think she's going to work against them. I think there's going to be like something where like something has happened and they need the others, the other ship that's there, their parasite or whatever.
Yeah. When I saw that he'd taken Reno, I was like, they're going to need her.
Yep.
Because the Discovery writers aren't exactly subtle.
No. And you take like an engineer, you're going to need an engineer, probably.
Mm-hmm. And I hate to say that because I would love more subtlety.
Yeah. It's weird because sometimes you're too subtle. Like a minute ago with the we were talking about with Hirai. Hirai, thank you.
I guess.
I guess. The thing we were talking about with the new doctor, like, being a bad communicator that's a communicator, like that's a cool trait, like go for it. Like I kind of like when Star Trek's a little broad sometimes, like with the character, like I mean Spock, there's a ton of subtlety there, but like it's got the broad stroke of he's the guy that's all logic, and then you've got the McCoy who's all emotion, and you've got Kirk in between. Like it's such a dichotomy, it's just like trichotomy, and like it's very pretty well defined. At times they play against those things, but they're there for a reason. The sort of tropes are there for a reason. And I do think that like sometimes it's almost too subtle and it's afraid to go kind of tropey, and sometimes it's not subtle enough. It's like hitting you over the head with what's coming. I guess plot subtlety they're not necessarily great at. They try to make all the characters very, very subtle.
Yeah. Stu continues.
Sorry, we keep interrupting you, Stu.
No, I mean, I don't know how else we would do it, honestly. I'm not going to remember all that. Stu continues, there was a Lurian drinking at the counter in 15 Sideways? I don't know what that bar is called, but if it has a name, should the number be lower than 10 because Discovery was originally a prequel, or higher because it's the future and there was a refit? But anyway, Lieutenant Morn the 18th, perhaps? Why they all gotta be Morn, man?
Yeah. Because Morn is the most legendary of he's the Bill Brasky of
Bill Brasky.
He's the Bill Brasky of the Lorian species.
Yeah. He says awkward Adira is awkward.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah, always. Glad someone is discussing the possibility that 10C, a designation that just makes me think of High C every time it's mentioned, could end up being a bunch of dicks who don't care about what they're doing. Yeah. I mean, I can't believe they hadn't mentioned it before. Overall, they tried to vary it up and do some exploration of scientific reasoning, and there was only one Michael speech, so decent episode.
Only one Michael speech. Nice. Thanks, Stu.
Thank you, man.
In general, pretty good episode. I am very much ready to get to 10C. I think I'm a little more calm and ready to wait because I've already got my Star Trek fix for the week. Like, I got a really great Star Trek fix this week with Picard. And so the fact that, you know, even if Picard in the next 2 weeks is a little bit of a lull in like trying to figure out what's going on or whatever, we got 2 episodes of Discovery to go where they're going to like be actually meeting the 10C. They've crossed the barrier now. It's time. We're finally going to get it. I'm excited.
Yeah, I mean, having 2 episodes a week is kind of like rubbing the nub after you've blown, you know what I mean? But I was waiting for it. I was waiting for the reaction.
I don't like
waiting for it to register.
I don't like it, man.
You're just like, no. But this episode, it in some ways fell flat for me. In other ways, like, I was just happy to have some progress in the story.
Yeah,
it's like, oh hey, well we gotta look at what we think the 10C might look like if they're not just their cows or goats or whatever.
Yeah.
And I like when Star Trek decides to go like, oh, these things are completely different than anything you've ever seen before. Here's a weird thing.
Yeah.
If they had gotten there and it was just like a human with a dick on his head, like normal, I would be like, again, even outside of the galaxy, it's just like humans with weird bumps on their heads and shit. So I don't know. I was happy about that. I was happy to see some imagination thrown towards the beings that we've never seen before.
Yeah, same. I like that it's just gonna be a totally different thing, and they're just like from a different kind of world with a different kind of environment. It's just gonna be a completely different kind of thing, and so yeah, I
was happy. I was happy that Detmer got some like backstory. Like we got a little more of her story, because I was like, you know, they have been slowly trying to slip in a little from these other bridge crew members who we don't ever really talk to.
Yeah.
This season. It's like, okay, we've got Detmer. Is she gonna say, oh, there it is. She said something. She said something about her past. Makes me, I don't remember what it was because it wasn't terribly interesting, but it was a thing.
Yeah, man. I liked that they got so much different stuff in this episode, and like we got a good bit of the side crew without like it not focusing on it. It was a good it's a good ensemble episode. We got a little bit from Detmer, a little bit from Jet. And I'm really, I don't know, I'm excited, man. I don't think I've been this excited about a Discovery plotline probably since like the Mirror Universe stuff. I really liked that stuff.
Yeah, I don't think I'm there, but it's all right.
Yeah, no, I'm not there either, but I am closer to there than I have been previously. I think the last couple seasons have fell a little flat for me from a like overarching story perspective. I've liked individual episodes throughout the series,
right?
And I think they've gotten better. I think the first episode of season 3 was probably one of my favorite episodes, when it's just Burnham landing in the future by herself. That was an amazing episode.
Yeah, I agree.
So good.
That one.
But like, I've felt kind of, it's been like the overarching plots have not Control didn't really interest me that much, and neither did I guess bringing the Federation back together interested me, but not so much the burn. And especially the solution to the resolution did not interest me. And I guess this is, you know, I'm interested, but every time I've been interested, we kind of get to the end of it and it's like, okay, the ending kind of falls flat. So I'm kind of hoping they have a good plan, and that the 10C is infinitely interesting to me. I just hope it doesn't fall flat like previous seasons has kind of like, I don't know. It's like they missed their last shot, you know, they miss it at the buzzer.
I think one of the issues, especially with like an overarching series like this, with a heavily serialized show, the way they're doing it just kind of feels like Star Trek Save the Cat. Every week is just like they're getting sidetracked from their main mission to go do another thing. And I'm just like, for the love of God. It feels like they're saying, we've got 13 episodes to fill. We can't go meet these people yet. Now they've got to go play poker. Or, well, we can't do it yet. Now they got to go to this planet and look at some bones.
Yeah.
Like,
have you seen the show Barry yet?
No, I haven't gotten to it.
I love that show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Barry, I've heard the writers talk about that show, and they have this interesting idea of like kind of leave it all on the table or whatever. Like let the thing happen that's supposed to happen. Like get yourself into a place where you don't know what happens next. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Like
if you have an idea, use the idea. Like don't hold it off till the end. And I think that's something that this show could embrace and be a better show. Because I do feel like it's always like, okay, we're holding off the idea till the end. And I get that like Star Trek is a big franchise, and I think there's just a certain writing aesthetic that like you got the like if the character would do the thing, just do the thing. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. If the character would like. They would absolutely head towards the 10C first, I feel like. I don't know, like, send those dots, you know, like, send those dots down to the planet and try to, like, communicate with them somehow. Set up a communications relay while you still head toward the 10C. Yeah. I don't know. I say all that to say that this episode actually didn't bother me too much. I think, like, the poker episode bothered me a little bit more from that, like, waiting around perspective.
It is hard to say because it's like, yeah, you would think if you're going up against a monumental threat like this, where you don't know anything about the 10C, mm-hmm. you might want to go check out their old apartment.
Sure.
As my grandmother said.
As your grandmother said, yeah.
But like they only like walked around like a few miles, you know? Like they didn't like check out the whole planet. Like, were there ruins other places, or did you just have scanners going over that? Like, what are we talking about, y'all? Like, you basically went for a walk in a park and decided this is their entire species.
Yeah.
This is how this happened.
Yeah, and they were talking about how we need to find, like, some writings or some things on some walls or whatever, and they did not find it.
Yeah, they just wanted to get an idea of how to communicate with them, though, which they did.
Right, they did. And, I mean, that's the thing. It's like, you either need to have time to do this, because, like, that's the thing, that they needed to get down there and find those answers in a matter of hours, and mm-hmm. figuring out how to communicate with a new species that may be totally different than you is going to take a while. So it's like you either are in a rush because Earth is about to be destroyed, or you got a little time to spend. And it's like they needed more time for this episode. Like if this was TNG, you'd go down to a planet and like, we've been working, there's been an archaeological dig for 10 years working on this planet, and we're going to finally step in at the last minute and see like, now we're going to communicate with the alien, you know?
Yeah.
Another ship from the Federation could have gone through and had already been working on it. And then they go down to like find that crew has all murdered each other because of their fear response or something, you know, like you could have done something like that. And then you like, you uncover the problem, what they went through, but you have their logs. So you have like a lot more time to spend, on this planet. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like you find out, this is me and you in a writer's room right now. You find out that the 10C lives beyond the galactic barrier, but you find out that the DMA the structure that it's composed of, you found a structure similar on some planet at some archaeological site inside the galaxy. So they send a different ship there. You know what I mean? Something like that.
Right.
So like that ship could be working the problem while you're out doing while you're playing poker, and you got the Federation at your hands. Like you could do other types of things. It doesn't always have to be we go and solve the problem in 3 hours and then we move on to the next thing.
Even if you were just using one ship,
Right.
Michael said that she was going to send a team. I don't know why she had to be on that team. Like, send your team. We can cut between them. You guys can keep in contact with them as they're discovering the planet. You're going to check out the 10C. Hey, we're going to be here in 3.2 hours. That's how long you have to get me some answers.
Well, and that was just something that the president pointed out. Like you're taking the captain and the first officer. They did make a case for it, and I don't know if that was them hanging a lantern or if that was them thinking that was. I don't know if they're trying to show us that Burnham needs to learn some things, or that like they just so necessary, because it does feel a little silly to have Burnham be necessary for this mission. You know what I mean? Like every mission. She is a xenoanthropologist, so like it makes sense. Mm-hmm. There's just sometimes it feels like they don't, and this is one of my biggest problems with like bad writing. And I'm not saying this show is poorly written, but at times there are I really don't like it when there's cracks in the writing where it's like, there's just like, you could have done a little bit of not even headcanon. You could have put a little line in there to solve these little things, these little problems. And they can still be kind of annoying even when you do that. But there are ways to sort of fix these problems without even taking away the episode that you wanted to make, or the kind of fanciful idea you had. You just kind of have to like backtrack and be like, okay, what problems does this have? Okay, we're building this world. We can give them an extra 3 days, or we can give them a little more time so that they, but they decided to put a rush on it, and then they decided. But I guess they're also trying to make two sort of camps emerge, which is like Tarka, Book, and the General, and then also have the sort of Federation camp be opposed to them, but then both be reasonable. Which is I love that. I love that. So like the fact that this decision wasn't easy. I guess also like I kind of wish the decision had been harder for Burnham, because if it had been a hard decision for her that she wasn't sure of, it'd be a little easier in 2 episodes to find out she was wrong to do it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Instead, she's just so self-assured, and the show wants to show you that she's always right for being self-assured. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'd be great if she was always self-assured and then they broke her down and made her realize that she has no reason to feel that way, that she should doubt herself more.
Yeah. One way or the other. Either you're doubting yourself so much you need to learn. Like, you just got to learn. Your character needs to learn. And if the character is always super self-assured and then also is always right, it's just there's nowhere to go,
Yeah. Now, with like, say, Kirk, they would do like, he's not sure what to do. He listens to Spock. He listens to Bones. He makes a decision, and most of the time he's right.
Right.
Until Star Trek 2, and then he's like, no, I've cheated death and I've patted myself on the back for my ingenuity.
Right.
I'm a piece of shit. My son doesn't know me. I hate my life right now.
Right.
And then further in Generations, realizing that he's completely destroyed any kind of real life he could have had for galloping through the cosmos, as Bones would say.
It's not that dissimilar to what's happening to Picard right now,
Yeah.
He's gallivanting. It's for a different reason, I think. I think Kirk revels in the adventure, but I think Picard is more, as we're learning now, fearful of home, and that's so cool to be learning that about him now, because it is very similar. And I think, again, I said that episode we watched this week reminded me of those TOS movies, and I think like that's another corollary is like, this is Picard facing that same sort of question of like, what is my life? Like I've been captain all this time, but like, what is life now? What is life after captaining?
I think like if you go back to something like TOS or TNG and you say you apply it to the problem of, why is Michael and the first officer going down on this planet? Well, we're the most qualified. And that's the only place they went with it. I kind of feel like there should have been like in one of those old episodes, they would have said your role as the captain is more important. There should be a person who is slightly less qualified than you that can go.
Right. Agreed.
And then Michael, if she were Kirk or Picard, both have done it, would just do like this little smile, like, yeah, but I want to go.
Right. And that's the thing is like, it's this combination of factors that you want it to have. You want it to have that sort of like logic of like, we are people trying to make the best decisions we can to reach the goals that are best for humanity. But we also are selfish beings that want the life we want. And it's like that's what makes this stuff interesting. You know, that's what makes all these stories interesting. And like when you let your desires cross over to where they're overtaking the needs of the many, as it were, then you're the villain. You know, if you're Tolian Soren, you're the villain. And there's just like, and that's the basics of all of these stories. And it's like that interplay between the needs of the many and the needs of the one is kind of like everything. And when you don't know what the needs of the one or many are, when it's like this sort of like nebulous decisions that are like, maybe it's good, maybe it's bad. There's people on different sides. Like, I don't think that, not to say this dichotomy isn't interesting, because I do think the dichotomy they have now is also interesting, where they're just like, I guess I just don't necessarily know what Burnham wants, like as a human being. Like, I know she wants to be with Book, but it's almost like they're both such heroes. They're both willing to give up their personal life to do the thing that they want to do, that they think should do. They can, and one of them can be wrong, but that's different than like the internal struggle is not there. It's to some degree, or at least it's not it's not affecting their decision making as much.
Yeah,
and I agree with you completely. I like the idea of her learning. Like, if something bad had happened on this mission, or something bad had happened on the ship, which it kind of did, or like maybe they could have shown that what happened on the ship, like maybe the reason they didn't catch that Book and Tarka were landing on their ship was because they had an inept commander in control. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, hell, Michael was there part of the time they were there. She didn't catch him.
Sure, that's true. That's a valid point. Like, well, it would be interesting if like they had shown the bridge, and then whoever that commander was, like, there's a fluctuation on the outer hull at this point. Should we send someone out? And it's like, oh, and then they make the wrong decision. You know what I mean? Like, that would have been nice, because then it's like maybe Burnham and like show that they make a wrong decision. But they also, like, it seems like they're always kind of scared to make a Starfleet officer look like an idiot, which like is not a problem for TOS for sure. And, occasionally not a problem for TNG. They don't do it as much. They kind of do it with, they always have a thing with like, well, whoever's higher than the captain is going to be a dick, a stupid dick. I agree with that completely. That's definitely a trope. I'm talking about the crew itself. Is often like the crew of the Enterprise is valiant warriors, and they're wonderful, and they're all the best warriors and the best people. And then kind of anyone else can be a bad guy, or like anyone else can be a dumb guy. There's exceptions for sure.
Yeah, there are exceptions. It's generally like anyone above captain, they're a stupid dick. Anyone who's not a regular bridge crew member can be a stupid, awkward dick. It's like,
agreed. That's what I was saying. It's like, it's most common in TOS, more common in TNG, but here it's like, I kind of feel like everyone is always a valiant person. And I think the TNG thing where like the admirals are always the dicks I think it's a sort of a statement about bureaucracy, and it's a statement about like the higher ups don't always know the right thing. It's about like making your own decisions when faced with like a system that's telling you to do something else. There's a lot of reasons for that.
And I was thinking about that the other day, because there's always this question when you're on like Trek Twitter or whatever, and you see these interactions, and people wind up saying like, how are conservatives fans of Star Trek? And I'm like, and I was thinking about, I'm like, well, because for like 30 years, Star Trek was like, bureaucracy is bullshit. Everybody above you with authority doesn't know what the hell they're talking about.
Yeah.
they were totally doing that while at the same time playing the let's be progressive card.
It's also like, yeah, exactly. And it's also like completely about diversity and like inclusion and seeing someone who's different and forging the future and being willing to change the past, change what you've been up to. You know, I want to say is it Trexpertise that did a great, they did, yeah. What do conservatives actually like about Star Trek? There's a 23-minute Trexpertise is a great YouTube channel, localized in Birmingham, by the way. I don't know if you knew that. Did you know that?
I think you told me, but it flew right out of my head.
Trexpertise has great video essays, and they have one called "What Do Conservatives Actually Like About Star Trek?" And a lot of what they point out, and it's been a while since I watched the video, but a lot of it's like the aesthetic of it being military. All of that stuff. It is some of the trappings that they enjoy, but like it's like they ignore the actual lessons of the episodes and the movies.
Right, which you know, a lot of that is like, you know, when I wind up going like, this is why I don't agree with like hardlined anything.
Sure,
like because yes, bureaucracy is bullshit. Yes, a lot of it is just like red tape, and no one knows what the hell they're doing. Mm-hmm. You know, at the same time, how about, you know, let people live and have rights.
Yeah. Like, and also sometimes bureaucracy is important. You know what I mean? Like there are, which is why I like the exploration of all these things in like varying ways, and why I think a show like Discovery that sort of feels, and I think the impulse to make none of the lower crew too dumb is sort of a liberal mindset of like, you know, you don't want to like you don't want to make them look dumb. They're the one without power, so you want to make the people in power be the ones that look dumb or evil or whatever.
It's the same with Discovery's like decision to like make bridge officers awkward as hell.
Right.
And very neurodivergent. It's just like, but they do take it so far that you wind up not liking some of the characters. You're just like, oh God, again? Oh, okay, we get it. You don't know how to talk to people.
Right. It's like, you don't, I mean, it's the fans of Star Trek are often neurodivergent in some way or another. I think me and you both are neurodivergent in our own ways. And so the people who have been fans of this stuff and have become, you know, the writers or whatever this stuff. And I mean, like, you know, there are definitely like, especially like autism things that like sort of connect people to Spock as a character, or, you know, all of those things. But the thing about it is like not every character is that way in the early Trek, you know, like Kirk is a jock. Kirk is a smart guy, but he's the like grab the lady, be the thing. Like he's grabbing life. I don't know, dude.
Kirk, and it's one of the funniest things to me about people who claim that Michael is a Mary Sue. Kirk was like the ultimate Mary Sue.
Oh, for sure.
Kirk was a jock. Kirk was brilliant. Total genius, had like so many medals and commendations. Like he taught at the academy. He was good at everything.
For sure, 100%.
But yeah, he was awkward though. Like he would say weird, awkward shit. Because one of the great things about
in the original series or like the movies are a little different.
In the original series, like they would like his reputation with women was overplayed in other media.
Sure.
Like when you go back to the original series,
right?
Like,
we've had this discussion before.
Yes, he's not comfortable around women under his command. He's not. He's very much like I have to be this kind of guy. I have to be like, I can't have anyone to love. I can't have anyone see me be weak. I can't. This is the curse of the Starfleet captain.
Sure.
And of course, as he gets to know this crew, 5 years on out in the middle of nowhere with these people, he lightens up a little bit, as does Spock and everybody else. But he was very awkward in a lot of situations, and so I mean there is that. But you know, as a person who's very awkward in his real life, man, look, I get it. Some people want to see themselves on screen. I don't want to see myself on screen. Like I see Adira being awkward and I go, yeah, I know what that's about. I don't want to see this. I just think about like every bad interaction I've ever had.
Right. Like I think that sort of, I think the character of like Barkley in The Next Generation is a great example of like an exception that was nice to have, but it wasn't necessarily, it wasn't the whole crew. And I don't think the whole crew here is either, but there is a little more of that going on.
It's really just Tilly and Adira. That's all.
Tilly and Adira. Yeah, I think you're probably right. I don't think that's a huge issue, but I think they also just show them as a little more human here. So like, yeah.
All the other bridge crew act like they've been smoking weed behind the scenes. Like they're just like they chill for the most part. unless the way they have to do something and then they get a little nervous.
Right. And I think that's the thing is like they definitely show themselves to be a little more human on this show. And I like that. Mm-hmm. I like that.
Yeah.
I do. But yeah, I'm excited. Excited about the last episode. Let's get there. Woo. Yeah. So in the series, Kirk kissed 19 women, which, he's
out of 79 episodes, that's not nearly as much as you would be led to believe.
If you're kissing someone in a third or like a third of your missions, let's say, or a fourth, it's a fourth. I'm sorry. If you're kissing a different woman on a fourth of your missions, that's a lot. Like every 4 missions, you find a different woman on the planet to go. That's a lot. So like the whole reputation as a woman, I don't think it's overplayed. I think and I'm not blaming the show. He's the lead of the show. They want him to have a romantic connection, and like he has a romantic connection for whatever reason. Is often he in that era of Star Trek, there were a lot more episodes that Kirk was the star of. You know what I mean?
Right. And Steve Shives actually broke that down even further and was like pointing out like, here were how many were just like he was trying to get out of a trap, or he was fooling a woman into
sure
lowering their defenses so he could like beat her alien slave master or whatever.
Right.
And then here were the ones that were, he comes into contact with a woman he met in his past.
Right.
They and most of the time he had these were like women who generally came from his past, who he had a genuine monogamous relationship with, and they had broken up so that he could go run around in the galaxy.
Right. Sure. And that, I'm sure that happens in the show. My point is, even if we're talking about with him at his reputation or his bravado or whatever earlier, it was how we got to this. And I'm just saying, like, whether you're the guy who is going out and sleeping with a woman on every 4 missions, or kissing a woman on every 4 missions for genuine heart purposes, or you're the guy who is like willing to like who is confident enough in his maneuvers that's the move you use when you're trapped. Either way, that is not the same kind of character that we think of as, especially like representative of a Star Trek fan base. Not representative of me,
For sure, like when Kirk gets pushed into a corner, he gets a hard on. Like like all of his energy goes to his libido, and he's just like, I know how to get out of this.
You're saying like his reputation as a ladies' man as a result of his kink for adventure.
I was gonna call it flight or fuck, but I mean,
Kirk's flight or fuck response. All right, I dig it.
After he's lost the fight, you see, and he's in the alien prison.
All right, well, guys, I guess we got to that gem, and that's all I can ask for out of this podcast.
I feel bad about it too.
Nope, it's perfect. All right, guys. Well, we'll be back to talk about more Star Trek very soon, because we're gonna probably put these Discoveries up a little later. I don't know. I guess on the finale we might put Discovery up first, but we'll probably be doing Picard first in the next couple weeks, because it's very exciting to have Picard. I can't believe they're dropping on the same night. I get it. Well, actually, I don't. Honestly, I don't. So here's the thing. Like, I get they want to overlap them by a few weeks, if for no other reason, because they want people to maybe check out the other one while they're there, you know, and be like, new episodes are coming out of both shows. But how do they convert? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like they don't have to come out on the same night. I know it's like kind of like getting used to them coming out on the same night, but it's streaming. So yeah, I don't know. It seems weird to drop them at the same time.
It doesn't seem weird to me because that's how we watched DS9 and Voyager back in the day.
That's true. But that's because they're literally playing on the same stream of a channel. So, you know, when they play, you watch one and then they're introducing you to the other one by having it come on immediately after, you know?
Yeah, no, I get that. But I don't know. For some reason, it just feels right. And it also feels like it would be more difficult to keep it in people's minds that this one drops this day, this one drops a different day.
Sure.
Just drop your Star Trek.
I do like that it's just dropping constantly on Wednesday night or whatever. Mm-hmm. Very cool. All right, guys, we'll be back later this week with some Picard. Pretty excited. Earlier
this week, we're going to time travel?
Yeah, I think I said later, but I may have said earlier.
Oh, it sounded like earlier. That would be. I really wish that was a concept we could pull off. You know?
Oh yeah,
that'd be cool.
Yeah, I'd be much more adept at podcasting with time travel. I hope that I would use it more responsibly than that, but I can't promise.
Yeah, I was gonna say I would like to think I'd be more productive if I had time travel, but I wouldn't be.
No,
I know, man. I wouldn't be.
I would just be aging really fast because I'd be like traveling to another dimension to like take breaks and just okay, I gotta go back and do some work. Okay, did some work. Now I'm gonna do whatever else. Yeah. But then I just end up being like 6 years older and have like 3 days worth of work done. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's probably true.
Like, well, I wanted to go see Star Wars in the theater. Why? You don't even like Star Wars that much, Dave. I know, but I kind of wanted to check out the experience. Yeah. Like, see everybody see it for the first time.
For sure. All right, guys. We'll be back later in the week. Peace. Jolan True.
Live long and prosper.
Thank you for listening to the Star Trek Universe Podcast, a Stranded Panda production. If you'd like to hear more from David C. Robertson, check out the DC On Screen podcast or maladjusted.tv for his web videos. If you'd like to hear more from Matthew Carroll, check out the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast or listen to his music. Just search for Matthew Carroll anywhere you get music.